For anyone who has been somewhat active in the PvP discussions of Loomian Legacy, at this moment it has been made clear that Jamie wants to rework Baffle. Instead of lowering the opposing Loomian's speed, it lowers its highest attacking stat by 1 stage. Basically, a worse Zulang ancient role. This rework is to make it harder for oppressive Baffle abusers from breaking teams. However, I believe that not only is this a rework a step in the wrong direction, but this having drastic changes that will prove to be negative to the OU metagame. This is Cotton Stoops, and today's video where we'll be theorizing and proving why reworking Baffle is a horrible idea and providing countermeasures and solutions to the problems that Baffle brings. The most obvious consequence of this change is the nerf to hard-hitting but slower wall breakers. The great attribute about Baffle was Loomians such as Colossotrops, Erotodon Soulburst, and Joltooth, which were normally underspeeding most of the metagame's offensive Loomians, were now outspeeding them. This pretty much have made offensive playstyles hard to play with, as these hard-hitting wall breakers now have the speed advantage and now threaten to do large portions of damage or straight up kill the opposing team. Now that Baffle only lowers the attacking stat of the opposing Loomian, these Baffle abusers are still prone to damage and to get revenge killed much more easily. Mixed Loomians such as Gargolem Attack, Dakuda, Novidius, fast pivoters that can pivot off of them such as Zulang, Phagenot, Wendelin to avoid the stat decrease, and Loomians that don't care regardless of decrease such as Tundrolin and Cleone. For each respective Baffle abuser, makes the Baffle abuser's job a lot more harsh. While this makes these oppressive Baffle abusers a lot more balanced, this also nerfs the healthy Baffle abusers such as Valkyrie, Shachi, Halvantic, C.B.O, and Barbadger. Loomians that never needed these nerfs and now are worse because of them. These several changes in matchups ruin the existence of Baffle-centered teams and ultimately give rise to bulkier playstyles such as semi-stall and stall. With these strong Baffle abusers a lot more easier to deal with, these bulky playstyles can now have more room for error, and their form of counterplay against Baffle will be a lot more easier. This will inevitably encourage the use of semi-stall to ungodly amounts, more so than this current meta. With offense's best tool nerfed to the ground, it will be a lot more difficult to bring wall breakers and break walls in. This will cause a few changes to some playstyles such as pivot leads, such as Zulang and Wendelin, or offense overall becoming more bulkier to make up for the lack of damage potential that Baffle could bring, aka balance. So how exactly do we go about this Baffle problem? These oppressive Baffle abusers need to be stopped, but this rework promotes an uneven, unhealthier metagame. Well, with the help of co-script writer Jofkas, we developed some counterplay against Baffle that 1. Nerfs Baffle cores and Baffle abusers, and 2. Provides a healthy form of counterplay and a healthy existence of where Baffle cores and Baffle stoppers can both exist. This solution, while seemingly controversial at first, is the addition of more Regift and Staunch users. More so Staunch. Regift and Staunch are powerful utility-based abilities that can shut down move debuffs, and in Regift's case, the casting of hazards. This of course includes Baffle. If more Regift and Staunch users become more common, this gives counterplay to the Baffle playstyle while keeping Baffle teams alive by giving them the chance for counterplay instead of ruining the playstyle like the Baffle rework. Whether that be enlisting great offensive Loomians that have good matchups against Regift users, predicting, switching to other pivot moves, and more. However, in order to enact this plan to stop Baffle, we even listed a few Loomians that can appreciate the Staunch or Regift abilities. Some, all, or even more of these Loomians such as Lumelo, Sinogre, Blotox, Oxydrake, Daiborg, Cleone, and Chartiki. All of these Loomians are either outclassed by the meta and need some kind of niche to stay relevant, are straight up bad Loomians that need buffs, or are already good in the meta and will contribute to Baffle's counterplay. Let's run down each of these Loomians. First off, the more metagame relevant Loomians such as Cleone, Oxydrake, Daiborg, and Chartiki will appreciate the addition of Staunch to replace their lackluster abilities in Guardian, Devianus, and Immunize respectively, as well as having good matchups against most of the Bafflers and some of the Baffle abusers. They will also set up momentum for their team from whether that be setting hazards or enchantments, removing hazards, and much more. And of course, these Loomians will not be broken due to their metagame matchups. Finally, no less metagame relevant Loomians such as Lumelo, Sinogre, and Blowtox all appreciate the buffs since these will give them separate niches from their metagame counterparts. Whether that be Blowtox to Marblast, Sinogre to Charonix, or Lumelo to basically any metagame water type. These Loomians can also serve as to stop bafflers in low tiers, mainly UU to the likes of Icicle and Wraith mainly, in case they get overpowered quickly. So overall, there's not a lot I can really talk about here, but if someone of influence is watching this video, then there's going to be one more thing that I'll say, and that is the outcomes of both of these strategies. First off, let's talk about the Baffle rework. You guys already know my thoughts on it and how it will impact the metagame from my theorizing. Because these Baffle abusers will be less common, bulkier playstyles, specifically semi-style and bulky balance. They're gonna be, or not, bulky balance technically doesn't exist, but balance in general. They're gonna be a lot more better because there's a lot less stuff that can break those playstyles. And that will also, by extension, buff bulky offense a little bit better because they also, for the same reasons as semi-stall and balance, and by that extension, stall as well. However, with my rework, you will also, not only will defensive teams have a lot more options at their disposal, mainly staunch users. And do note that staunch and regift can be passed to more Loomians. It necessarily doesn't have to be these Loomians, but that'll have to be a more discussion in a later date. But other than that, defensive teams getting a lot more options now. You also now have offensive teams, specifically Baffle, still having their best tool, but a little bit nerfed. It's like the Baffle rework, except it never really got nerfed. They still exist, they still do a good job, and they still have some forms of counterplay. Whether that would be getting good offensive Loomians that have good matchups against the staunch or regift users, double predicting more uses of pivots such as fadeaway or other stuff that future bafflers will be getting. Overall, the rework and solution that I'm proposing promotes a more healthy way that will keep baffle and defensive teams in line of each other, where they're still going to be pretty good without butchering the other one for the other. And overall, that's pretty much all that I gotta say. So hopefully I've convinced you guys on my solution, or if I didn't convince you guys, make sure you let me know down below and let me know your thoughts on this solution. Hopefully Jamie sees this one, and that's pretty much it of all what I gotta say. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and look forward to more videos to come. This is just my thoughts on some balance changes, and yeah, this is Cotton Stoops signing off to remind you that Zulong is still a dumpster fire.